The Practical Church Podcast. My name is Dylan Dotson, and this podcast is all about helping you plant and grow healthy churches. Today, we're going to talk about 6 reasons why you struggle to attract volunteers at your church. So if you want to grow, how many people are volunteering and all that sort of thing, this episode is for you. And of course, as always, this podcast is brought to you by Mission Support. Mission Support knows you want to be effective in ministry, but if you're like most pastors, you probably feel like you never have enough time, energy, or expertise to get everything done. So hey, check out missionsupport.com, talk to a guy today. They do a number of back-end stuff from websites to SEO to payroll to any of their other services. Missionsupport.com, you can go from feeling scattered to focused on your mission again. It's possible to love being a pastor again. And if you want more from the Practical Church Podcast, you can go to missionsupport.com/podcast to learn more there. Of course, you can also join the Facebook group if you're not yet a part of it. Now let's get into today's episode. All right, 6 reasons why you struggle to attract volunteers. Now, as a side note, at New City, we try to avoid the word volunteer. We call them serve team. It's grammatically, sometimes it's kind of hard, but not to say that you have to do this. I'm going with volunteers in the show title because that is the most common language that most churches use. We just kind of like serve team better because volunteers kind of gives the impression of, you volunteer at a soup kitchen, or you volunteer at a shelter, or you volunteer at your kid's soccer game. You volunteer for things that you just kind of want to help, but you serve at things that matter. Like a kid doesn't volunteer to do chores. Like they serve by doing chores. They're part of the family. This is what you do. And so we try to use the terminology serve team if you serve at New City Church, because volunteer can kind of feel disconnected, and we want people to be a part of what they're doing. Now that's just us. You don't have to use that terminology. Most people use volunteers. So that's what we go with. So serve team, volunteers, I guess some churches call them dream team, whatever you call the people who serve at your church. Here's why some churches and why you might be struggling to attract more of them. Here's number 1. It's not simple to sign up or express interest in serving. Not simple. So oftentimes people, maybe they're at a church service or they're at a meeting or they're talking to somebody, and for whatever reason they're interested in serving, but it's not clear where to go, like how to give the information, or like how to like say you're interested. And we kind of think like if you're in ministry, you're obviously really into ministry, might not be the best way to put it, but like this is like your life and like your vocational ministry is your thing. And so you might have been more forthcoming, growing up or at different churches. Hey, I want to be a part. That's not the case for a lot of people. Maybe they want to serve, but it's not like simple how to do it. Like how do people go about actually serving at your church? Is it a website? Is it a Connect card? Is it a conversation? Do you follow up with people? There are many times where you might talk to somebody and they might be interested, but then they never actually sign up. But maybe if you had like followed up with them, they would have. And so is it simple? Like, is there a place on your website? Or if you talk about it on Sunday, do you have a Connect card that people can actually like check right there? I know many churches have Connect cards or something equivalent to that, but if it's not like available to them at the seat that they're sitting in during the service when you talk about it, for example, and they have to go maybe to the table after service and sign up there, they're less likely to do it, they're more likely to forget. So you just want to make it like really simple. And so at New City, the simplest way we do, we have it on our website as well, but the simplest way we do it is you can do it on the Connect card or through conversations, or maybe if you do like a serve push. But you want to make it really simple because people don't always know where to go. They don't really want to navigate your website, especially if it's not like easy to do. And so if it's not simple to sign up, if you don't talk about serving, or if you say, hey, if you're interested in serving, here's what you do, like here's your next step, or here's how you let us know, that can be really hard. So again, if you have a Connect card, you can include serving as one of the options on the back of the Connect card. That's a simple way to do it, something like that. But it just has to be really simple. If people are interested in serving, but they're not sure how or who to talk to or how to express that interest, they're probably not do it. Again, you might be assuming, well, it's obvious, just come talk to me. But again, depending on the size of your church, maybe it's intimidating to talk to the pastor, or maybe they're newer and they don't really know where they want to serve, and so they just like don't do anything because it's a lot of steps. All I have to say, man, make sure it's really easy. If you're struggling to get people to serve, is it easy to serve? Again, if you do a serve push, you can email, just has to be really simple. If you talk about like serving and all you say is, hey, if you'd like to serve, let us know. Well, that's not very clear. Like, how do we let you know? Is it a conversation? Is it email? Do I check something off a card? So especially like when you're doing serve pushes, which I'll talk about here in a second, like just make it very, very simple. It needs to be easier than just like, come talk to me. Because again, let's say somebody wants to talk to you about serving after service, but you're talking to somebody else and they're not quite sure. Like, you've all done this, right? Where you're talking to one person and someone's clearly like obviously waiting to talk to you next. That could be awkward for both the person you're talking to and the person that's waiting. So that might not happen. So you need to make sure there's a quick and simple, easy way for people to sign up to serve so they can join the serve team and volunteer. Here's the second one. And this is what I see, unfortunately, like a lot of churches, is that you don't follow up well when people sign up. So you don't follow up when people sign up. I'm gonna give you a story. Years ago, before we planted New City, we were for a short time a part of a pretty large church in the Raleigh area. And we had signed up to serve once and didn't hear anything. Like it was like on the Connect card and didn't even get followed up, which I mean, that was pretty discouraging. I'm like on their end, because that's most people are gonna do. Secondly, a couple of weeks later, they had like a Serve Push Sunday where they had cards in every single seat. Check this out. We filled out the card, didn't hear anything. Like nobody followed up with us. Now, again, that's probably an anomaly that's probably unlikely, but I just wanna say we signed up to serve, like we went out of our way, like on a Connect card one Sunday, heard nothing. They had a Serve Push Sunday, we signed up again and heard nothing. And so when people sign up, even you've got to have a process of following up. And so if people sign up to serve, what are you gonna do? If somebody checks serving on your Connect card, like do you have a process of, okay, if somebody on a Sunday morning says they wanna serve, how do we deal with that on Monday or Tuesday? Like, is it clear? Do they go into a process? Is it clear that they're gonna be followed up with? If you like send out an email and somebody like, maybe a registration link or like maybe you send like a weekly email from your church and let's say you're talking about serving on one particular week and people sign up, like does anybody check that? And so, especially if it's digital, like it's one thing, the Connect cards I think are pretty easy because on Sunday you can see, okay, here's who signed up for these things. If it's a digital thing, you need to set reminders. So like for us, you can sign up to serve on our website. And so I actually have a reminder set every Monday to check the forms on our website. Like we have a Connect form, like a generic Connect form, like we have a form that people can do the Connect card digitally so they can text in instead of manually doing it. We also have like the serving website. So baptism, we've got a couple different forms. And it's not that they're like filled out all the time online, but I actually have a reminder every Monday to go and check so that we make sure they're not missed. And in fact, the serving form is actually sent to 2 different people so that like in the email so it doesn't get missed. But you gotta make sure you actually follow up. How do you follow up? If somebody says they're interested in serving, are you going to actually talk to them? What is it actually going to look like? Again, set a reminder to actually do so. If somebody checks off and you're not sure what the process is, or it's different every time, I think like in a ideal world, here's how we do it in New City. If somebody checks something on the back of the Connect card, so if somebody fills out a Connect card on Sunday, for example, there's like a series of texts and emails they get over the course of like 3 weeks. But also, if they fill out any information on the back of the Connect card, that's followed up with by Monday or Tuesday at the latest that Sunday. So they're gonna get information about like how to serve or maybe how to join a community group in the follow-up information, but we're not gonna just wait for generic information. If they specifically have said they're interested in serving, we actually are First Impressions coordinator, the person who's in charge of getting people connected, actually follows up with them, says, hey, thanks so much. Here are the positions, here's what it looks like, where would you like to get serving, kind of get the ball rolling from there. But like it's followed up with intentionally. So the paper ones might be easier. If you have a digital process, you've got to make sure that you're following up with it well. If you don't follow up with people when they express interest, then you can't get frustrated if they don't take that next step. So it's gotta be clear, like, okay, if I'm interested in serving, who's gonna be my next conversation? And I'll also say this too when it comes to follow-up. If somebody expressed interest in serving, you need to get them serving right away, especially if you talk about serving or have a Serve Push Sunday. Most people listening to this podcast probably aren't like mega church size, and so we could all, even mega church sizes need help too, but they maybe have some better processes at a church that size. But all of us, man, all of us at churches, like we could use more help. We could use more help. And so to say we need help and then maybe not getting someone on the schedule for a month, that's a big miss. So again, what I would recommend is get them on the schedule right away, especially if there's gonna be like a shadowing or something like they need to learn the position or they need to like follow somebody that first Sunday. Get them on the schedule right away and then you can like figure out their future schedule later. But it's a big miss, especially when it comes to follow-up. If somebody expresses interest, you talk to them, you get them on a team and then nothing happens for a month. It kind of shows that, hey, like maybe this isn't actually a big need when it really is. So make sure you follow up with them and then make sure you have their first serving Sunday as soon as possible. That's what we found, as soon as possible, so that they can get connected and know that they need that they can make a difference. So that's number 2. You don't follow up well when people sign up. Number 3 is that the bar is too low. So I just want to talk about this for a second. The bar is too low. Now there's a tension here because if it's like a lot of hoops to jump through, the people aren't going to get that. But people aren't going to do that. But if it's also too low and it doesn't seem like it really matters, then a lot of people are gonna be like, that doesn't seem worth my time because it doesn't really like make much of a difference. Let me maybe explain what I mean. I, for example, would have a serve meeting and have expectations. Again, not how to do it. How we do it at New City, but just helpful how we do it. We have a serve team meeting every Sunday for our serve teams. That everybody comes to it. They hear what's going on. Like they don't just like show up and stand at their position. So there's like every week that they serve, they're reminded, hey, here's what matters. Here's what's going on. Here's what you need to know. And like kind of like a refresher of why what you do matters. Now you should have certain expectations. Like here's when you arrive. Here's how long you need to stay at your post. Here's what happens if you need to call out. Like it can't just be kind of this like willy-nilly thing, because you'll attract the type of people, or maybe put it this way, the type of people you want serving, you need to set an expectation that attracts those type of people. And we're talking about like serving on a Sunday is not that high of a bar to begin with, and so it needs to like matter. If it's just like, hey, show up when you want, leave when you want, we don't want to ask you to come early or to stay late because we don't want to inconvenience people, but that also communicates like what we're doing does not really matter. I want to talk about maybe this way. How do I have this here? Yeah, so like we recently started this thing called the Weekender, which basically we're asking all of our new people to go to. And it's like a really nice dinner. And there's a whole thing, it's about 2 hours long, whatever. But our first one that we did was in August. Our next one's gonna be in October. We're doing this about every 6 weeks. And what was interesting is like we talked about how, here's what it looks like. Part of the Weekender is like explaining who we are as a church, very high level stuff, very engaging and also like interesting, entertaining. We have a really good time together. But we also like the main push of the Weekender is to get people to sign up to serve. Like that's it. We talk about New City Church, but hey, we just want you to serve. And we talk about the expectations, what it looks like. And what's fascinating, we had our first one in August, and every single person there that was new signed up to serve, which has never happened in anything else we've done. And part of the reason they did that is because the environment they walked into was really well done. It cost us some money. We have some people serving at this event to make it look really nice, but it communicates that, hey, what we're doing actually matters. It actually matters. And so even like how we talked about it, like if you're gonna serve at New City, you have to go to the Weekender if you're new and kind of learn about it. And like, it doesn't make it, while serving on Sunday isn't difficult, it kind of makes it seem like it matters. I even talked about this, even like how we've, some changes that we've made in our worship band practice. Let me explain how this looks. We recently, not safe to do this way, we have our own space. If you don't know this, I know this harder. We recently started feeding our band on their rehearsal nights, on Wednesday nights, and it's been awesome. It's definitely worth, I don't know, the $50, $60 a month that it costs. We typically do Chick-fil-A because there's one right next to us. And it gives them some camaraderie, but it makes it feel like, oh, like this matters. Like, you know, it's not that much money, but like they care about the time of spending. We also recently have reduced the amount of time the band spends practicing on Sunday morning. Especially, you know, we went to back to two services as I'm recording this a couple of weeks ago, and probably a little over a month by the time this airs, by the time this episode comes out. And part of like when you go from 1 to 2 services, people have to get there even earlier. And so instead of having the band come even earlier and running through all the songs, now they show up, they do like pretty much they do one song for sound check, and then we go right into run through, which of course they'll run all the songs during run through. But their practice time was shrunk. Now here's the thing. That means you have to be more prepared because you don't have as much time to practice on Sunday morning. But here's what this does. It actually attracts a type of musician who's going to be prepared. Because if you have your practice on Wednesday night, which we do, and then you have plenty of time to practice on Sunday, it's like, well, I don't have to practice that much because like, I can get the kinks out when we're practicing on Wednesday and Sunday. But if you have your Wednesday practice and then Sunday's like, we're just gonna do run through and that's it, you have to be prepared. And so like we put some money, you know, they have dinner together every week, and now they have less time to practice Wednesday, Sunday morning, but it attracts the type of musician who's going to be prepared. And that's what we want to do. So all I have to say, like you don't have the bar to be like willy-nilly, doesn't matter. Have expectations that you're calling people to, and people actually, listen, they want to make a difference. And if it feels like their serving doesn't matter, or it comes across, or it's not communicated in such a way that it doesn't matter, then you're gonna struggle to have people. But hey, if you serve, here are the expectations, here's what time you show up, here's what time you can leave, here's how long you stay at your post. It kind of communicates, hey, we've thought this through and this matters. So if the bar is too low, you'll struggle to get people to serve and to volunteer. Here's number 4. You give people way too many options. Now this might seem counterintuitive, especially, and I know everyone has maybe a different opinion on this. After being in ministry for, doing stuff that I've done, the experience I have, I'm not a big fan, this is just me, you can disagree. I'm not a big fan of, hey, take like a spiritual gift test and then serve in a position that best suits your giftings. As a side note, this may be a theological side note, I'm not a fan of spiritual gift tests because I don't think that that's actually what the New Testament is communicating when it talks about gifts. The spiritual gift test, since I'm already here, I might as well say it. I never liked them because you don't have to be a Christian to take those. And spiritual gifts or spiritual manifestations of the Spirit are supposed to be things that the Spirit empowers us to do. They're not supposed to be talents that we already have. And so I think we can kind of confuse our talents with spiritual gifts. And so I don't like those. I also don't like those when it comes to Sunday morning because serving on a Sunday morning, for the most part, like isn't difficult. And there's tons of different places, depending on the size of your church. But it's like, generally speaking, you've got production, you've got band, you've got kids, and you've got some sort of hospitality. Like those are like the main areas. And so you might have an interest more in one place or another, but my big thing is like, you need to get people serving right away. And then if they want to kind of talk about where they should fit better, that's easy to do so. So again, what most churches do, what a lot of churches do is they have way too many options. Like if you go on your website and say, church.com/serve, there's like 15 different places for them to serve. Or like on a Connect card, there's like 10 different options. And it's just, man, it's overwhelming. What you need to do is just, hey, come and serve, get connected on a team. And then once you're in a team, hey, find out where you might be more interested in. But a lot of people, like, they don't even know. They just want to help. And so what we do in New City, we've got 4 options. Let me think of them in my head. First impressions, band, production, and kids. And then if you have students as well, like that's it. Now there's different types of ways you can serve in kids, or there's different areas in first impressions or in production that you can serve in, like there's different positions. But you just want people to like sign up for a position and then like see if they like it or not. And then you can kind of differentiate, okay, why don't you try this or do this? I think on the front end, if you give people all of these options, it's gonna be really hard for them to choose and decide, here's what I'm actually going to do. So I would like reduce it to just big, high level. Kids, students if you have it, hospitality, first impressions, whatever you call it, production, band. I mean, those are like the 4 to 5. That's all I would go with. And then from there, you can kind of delineate or differentiate between the positions. But if you give, if you give an option for all your, let's just go with like hospitality, greeter, parking lot, safety, coffee, and whatever other positions that you might have, it just becomes like a lot. And in my opinion, none of those positions are actually hard. And so I would just get people serving, assign them a position, and then like they can, after they try it a week or 2 or however long, they can then try something else. But you want to get people serving. When you have too many options, it's paralyzing to pick from, and that can be a detriment. So when you talk about serving, or on your Connect card, like reduce the options on your website, on your Connect card. If you do like a serve push, I still would only like do just a handful of options. And then from that, you just need them to sign up. From that, they can then decide where they want to go after they try it a couple of times. So you give too many options, it's hard for people to say whether they want to volunteer if there's too many things to choose from. That's number 4. Number 5, you have the wrong person leading the charge. Now this is important, man. If you have somebody who doesn't want to do it, or is only doing it because no one else is doing it, or because they just like want to have some leadership and this is the spot you need, but they're not good at it, that's hard. And so you need somebody who can, if we're talking specifically about Sunday morning, you need someone who's passionate and excited about it. Now, I get it, like smaller churches, it's not like you're gonna have a highly specialized person in each position, but you need to have someone at least who cares about the church and wants to make a difference and is somewhat competent. Because if you're running a serve team meeting and they're bad, well, kind of shows it doesn't matter. If you can't have someone who schedules like the volunteers well and efficiently and everything's like scattered every week and there's not clear expectations, like people are gonna start to serve. And it starts with not just like the pastor, if you do like a serve per Sunday, or like the leadership. I'm talking specifically about the person who oversees the volunteers. Like that position really matters. And if the person is not very good or doesn't seem to care or is not good with people, then people aren't gonna wanna sign up to serve because they're gonna feel like it's not organized, they don't care, and they don't know what they're doing. So you might have the wrong person leading the charge. Now that can be hard if there's a certain conversation that needs to happen about it with people in charge, but I would just encourage you to think through, hey, if we're struggling in this area and we talk about serving, it's on the Connect card, it's not confusing, it could be the person who's leading the charge. And so I would really think about, hey, do we have the right person leading this? Because that can make all the difference in the world. Because what you also want to, especially when it comes to someone who's leading this, is if you wait only for people to sign up to serve, you're going to have problems. But if you have somebody or people who are willing to go and say, hey, here's a need, would you like to serve? That's what you need. Like you need someone who can, like, for lack of a better word, be a salesperson, if you will. My experience with this is many people are willing to serve, but they don't want to go on the website, or they're not quite sure how to sign up, or like whatever. But if somebody asked them, they would totally do it. And so you might be struggling to get people to serve, not because you don't have enough people, because they're not actually being asked. And you're just kind of waiting for them to like self-select themselves. When in fact, a lot of people would be willing to serve if someone would actually just ask them. So you need to have someone who's leading the charge, who's doing this well, wants to do it well, and is willing to be proactive about getting people to serve, not just reactive, because that can be a big problem that a lot of churches have. You're only waiting for people to sign up, and you're not actually going after people. So having someone in charge who wants to do that makes a big difference. And last but not least, number 6, you have unclear and or inconsistent expectations. So now let me talk about this. The expectations can be different per serve team. So the expectations for kids is different than who's in the band, is different than hospitality, is different than like production. I get it. But within those teams, you need to have consistent expectations. And now, church plants, maybe smaller churches, newer churches, this is where you can have a lot of trouble because you don't have, you need maybe more help than you have. And you have some people who are willing to serve, but they're kind of picky in how they want to serve. And because you just like need people, you're making exceptions. But the problem is when you start making exceptions for people, then you're not going to attract and implement, not just the type of person you want serving, but really you want to train the type of person you want serving. Because when I say like the type of person you want serving, I think everyone at your church can be that type of person if they're just instructed or trained properly. But if you have all these different people kind of coming in late, doing whatever they want, not coming to the serve team meeting or whatever, and it's never addressed, well, that's the kind of the culture you kind of created is, well, here's what we say, but here's what people actually do. And so if the expectations are unclear, that's not good. So I'll go back to the band example. I would rather have few people who play in our band who are quality, consistent, and live up to or adhere to our expectations. I'd rather have fewer people who we know we can trust, who are good, who are reliable, and can accomplish what we want to accomplish. So even if it's hard, especially if you're newer or smaller, it's better to have fewer people to set the culture who are on board of what you're doing than having a bunch of people kind of doing their own thing. So if it's unclear, if the expectations are inconsistent, it doesn't kind of inspire people to want to sign up to serve. I can only speak to me, and I can probably maybe speak to you as well. If you were, not working in vocational ministry and just serving on a Sunday at your church and involved, I would not serve at a church that was very obvious to me that there's different rules for different people. Like, I wouldn't do that. I would serve at a church that at least, you can't control people. Obviously, they're volunteers. It's not like people are getting paid. Yes, they're going to be like outliers here and there or things come up. Absolutely, that's totally fine. But I would serve at a church that seems to have thought through this and has a plan of action and execution, and they actually hold us to some sort of standard. So if you're unclear or you're inconsistent with your volunteers, again, that goes with having too low of a bar. Raise your bar a little bit, actually make it a good experience, and that way you can actually call people to serve. Like when you come to serve at this church, you're not just standing at a door, here are the expectations. So if they're unclear or if they're inconsistent, that's a problem. So I would think through, what are our expectations for each of our serve teams? And then who's not following them? Because it's okay if you have a couple of stragglers, but once you get I would say 20%, it's a low number. Even 20% of your people not following the expectations, it can be certainly can become a problem quicker for everyone else than you think. So those are 6 reasons why you might struggle to attract volunteers. There's not a simple way to sign up or express interest. Number 2, you don't follow up with people well when they do sign up. Number 3, the bar is too low. Number 4, you have way too many options to serve. You need to reduce those. Number 5, you have the wrong person leading the charge. And number 6, you have unclear and or inconsistent expectations for those who serve. For my ministry observation for this episode, I want to talk about documents. I'm going to put it this way. Documents are good, but ministry is better. Documents are good, ministry is better. Here's what I mean. I've seen this a lot, particularly with church planners, where they're trying to get all of their paperwork in order, right? So their bylaws, their documents for if you serve, which I know we just talked about serving, and you should have expectations. Here are my serve expectations. Here are my volunteer expectations. Here's the safety protocol, all these sort of things. And those things are, I'm not saying they're bad, but I have seen people get so distracted by or discipleship process. Let me write it out. Trying to have all these documents when they're not actually doing stuff that actually matters, right? You have to be, as a side note too, you have to be doing things to find out what actually works. Discipleship processes are so easy on a piece of paper. Until you run into the real world with people's struggles, life challenges, schedules, and then you see, hey, what worked on the seminary classroom doesn't actually work in real life. Now, I'm not saying we don't call people to things, and I'm not saying we don't have expectations, but you need practical real world experience. And I've just seen it more than I guess would have thought, of people trying to get all their documents in order before they're doing the ministry. So I would my encouragement is, yes, you need to have those. You have to have bylaws and you need a discipleship process. You should have things written out, but I wouldn't be so focused on every minute detail squared away on a document. if we're not actually doing something in person. And also, like, you need to remember this, no one cares about your documents. Like, I've had to like tell this to the church planners before. Nobody cares. I'm not saying you don't have it, but people don't care about your discipleship process. They care about their life and how your church can impact them and how they can play a part in your church. So documents are good and you should work on them. And yes, but like, don't let your energy, like doing ministry, be focused on papers and not people. So make sure your documents are in order, but they are, I would say they are overrated. And maybe this is like, this also depends on your church ecclesiology, like how you make decisions. So it could be harder to change things later. But like, you can always change things later, but trying to like have a perfect protocol for every single situation you might face, instead of actually like just doing the things, well, it's not helpful. So documents are good, ministry is better. Don't spend so much time, especially if you're in the early launch phase, like get those things in order and have them, but like outside of your elders and maybe certain people, like nobody cares. Have them in case there's issues that come up, but nobody cares about your documents. So, get them in order. And if you need help, you can go to missionsupport.com. They can get some of that back-end stuff in order as well. To like really help you focus on what matters. But like do ministry, and remember, no one cares about your documents. For this episode's personal growth tip, I want to talk about changing strategies. Here's the deal. The strategies that you successfully used in the past will eventually reach their limit. Every strategy that you've ever successfully used in the past will eventually reach their limit. This is why, by the way, I'm not a fan of if it's not broke, don't change it, because you will not be able to fix, by the time something is actually broken, it'll be too late. Obviously the famous examples of like Netflix and Blockbuster, Kodak and digital film, Nokia and the iPhone, like things could be going well, and by the time you realize it's actually broken, it's too late. So just remember, strategies you successfully used in the past will eventually reach their limit. And so to continue to improve, you must be willing to adapt. For example, the social media algorithms change all the time. The exercise routine must become more intense or change altogether to accomplish the same results. If you keep working out the same way, you're eventually not going to get any more gains. What helped you lose 40 pounds might be different than what helps you keep off the weight permanently. Or how you taught one group of students effectively is different than what the next group might need. See, often being stuck in the past happens because we experience success doing things a certain way and don't want to change what we did going forward, even though the world has changed. A lot of times we're stuck in the past because it did work, but then we didn't change with the culture and the world. So listen to me. Don't let your previous success keep you from experiencing success in the future again. Don't let your previous success keep you from experiencing success again in the future. Strategies that you successfully used in the past will eventually reach their limit. To continue to improve, you must be willing to adapt. Today's ministry question comes from Chris, who reached out to me and asked. He said, we are in the launch phase of our church plant and are looking to set up online giving. When should we try to have that set up and what provider should we use? One of the things I tell a lot of specifically church planners, you need to have this, I would set this up as soon as I can. Like if you are less than a month away from launching and you're actually launching, not just like maybe, like you're actually launching, you should go ahead and set it up. Go ahead and set it up. Because here's the deal. If you're doing a residency or something through another church, which is great, or an organization, maybe a denomination, a lot of times in the beginning, like in the launch phase, they'll hold the funds for you so that you give to this, you give a certain way. And then once you get really close to launch, they'll kind of change over and like to the church's giving. Now there has to be wisdom here because again, you have to actually be launching. So if you're taking these donations and you may or may not launch, that's a problem. But if you're actually moving towards planting the church, I would recommend as soon as possible having it set up because anytime you switch giving platforms or how to give, you are going to lose people because it's just the friction of canceling and starting over. And so you want to have the least amount of people possible having to change how they give. That makes sense. So the sooner you set up your own online giving, your own bank account, all that sort of things, then you're not going to have to then, like once you start getting some momentum or getting a giving base, you're not going to have to then go individually and try to get everybody to move. So if you're actually planting and launching, I would do it as soon as possible. Again, needs to be, probably 6 to 9 months out. It's probably safe because you're actually going to do it. But I would not wait till launch Sunday or the month before, because again, you're going to be talking about giving ahead of time. So I would, as soon as possible, get that set up as soon as you know that you're actually launching. Again, my recommendation probably 6 to 9 months out, get that set up. Now, what provider should we use? At the end of the day, they all seem to be the same to me. I would just think of it this way. I would do a provider that works well. I mean, this isn't an ad for Subsplash. We use Subsplash. We've had from the beginning. We've had no issues with them, and so we've used them. One of the things I always talk about in ministry, don't let cost be the number one factor in terms of who you use. Like, it does matter, especially for giving and giving fees. Yes, it matters. But here's what I see a lot of. You go to what's the cheapest option, and then eventually you grow out of it and you have to change. And so, like, if that's what you do, you choose the giving option that's like the cheapest or the easiest or whatever, and then 2 years in, you have to change it. Well, then now you got to change all of those givers. So I would do something that's reputable. I don't know if there's any giving platforms that like lock you into contracts. I wouldn't do something that does that. Again, we've used Subsplash and had no issues with it. I know PushPay, I think, is another one. I know Rebel Give from Pro Church Tools. There's many of them up there. So I can only speak to what we use. Or I should say it this way. We use Subsplash for online giving, and then we process all of our giving through Planning Center. So what we do at New City is Subsplash handles online giving, but then obviously cash and check you can't do online, and so it automatically syncs. Our Planning Center account syncs with Subsplash, so it sends the reports every month, and so that's how we do it. We process all of our giving through Planning Center, which has worked great, highly recommend. And then for online giving in particular, we use Subsplash. So that's how we do it at New City. My biggest thing is, hey, get it going as soon as you can. Use somebody that you think you could use for a long term, like regardless of the size of your church, and that's what I would do for online giving. Well, as always, thanks for joining me today on the Practical Church Podcast. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcast, also on YouTube. And we've also got some videos and other resources on YouTube as well. How to Preach Without Notes, I think, is one of the biggest videos we have on YouTube. So find us there. As always, missionsupport.com. If you've got tasks that are holding you back, things that are stressing you out, things you need help on, they do a ton of stuff at Mission Support, and they've got lots of great reviews. So you can go to missionsupport.com, check all that out. And if you want to ask a question for a future episode, missionsupport.com/practical. You can submit a question there. And if you're on Facebook, the Practical Church Facebook group, people are asking questions all the time. Get your questions answered. I even jump on there as well, so I get happy to chat with you on the Facebook group as well. And I'll be with you next time on the Practical Church Podcast.